I didn't expect a phone call. I didn't even expect warmth. But I also didn't expect to be erased with a single message. I was sitting alone in my apartment when it arrived, my phone buzzing once on the kitchen counter. Outside, the city was already dressed for Christmas, lights wrapped around lampposts, store windows glowed with fake snow and smiling mannequins. I remember thinking how strange it was that the world could look so alive while something inside me quietly collapsed. The message was from my father. "Don't come this Christmas. It's better if you stay where you are." That was it. No greeting, no explanation, no concern. Just a sentence that felt more like a dismissal than a request. My name is Rachel Monroe, and for nearly a decade, I had learned how to survive war zones. I had trained myself to stay calm under fire, to detach when things went wrong, to keep moving no matter what was lost behind me. But that message hit harder than anything I'd faced overseas. I stared at the screen, waiting for another text to follow. One from my mother, maybe, or my brother, something to soften the blow. Nothing came. It was as if they had all agreed, silently, efficiently, that I no longer belonged. I sat back on the couch and looked around my small one-bedroom apartment. A strand of Christmas lights hung across the window, half flickering because I hadn't bothered to replace the weak bulbs. I had put them up out of habit, not hope. Somewhere deep down, I still believed I might be going home for the holidays. That belief died in that moment. I typed one word in response. Fine. Not the fragile kind. Not the kind that begs for someone to ask again. This was final. The kind that closes doors instead of knocking on them. I shut my laptop, canceled the flight I had booked weeks earlier, and poured myself a glass of red wine. I raised it in the air, alone, and whispered, "To family." 5 days passed. On the 6th morning, my phone exploded with missed calls. 10 of them. My brother, my father, my mother, and one number I didn't recognize. A voicemail notification popped up. The unknown number belonged to a law office. That was when my chest tightened, because by then, something had already changed. Something irreversible. They had expected me to come crawling back like always, loyal, forgiving, desperate to be included. They didn't realize that this time, I wasn't the same woman who had left. Before the silence, before the message, before everything broke, I need to explain who I was to them. I enlisted the day I turned 18. Not because I wanted glory, not because I wanted medals. I joined because I needed distance from a house that never felt like home. My father didn't hug me when I graduated basic training. He shook my hand and said, "Don't embarrass yourself out there." That was his version of encouragement. My mother stood behind him, quiet as always, twisting her fingers together. She had mastered the art of staying invisible. My brother, Tyler, learned early that siding with our father meant peace. So he did. Every time. When I earned my first promotion, I flew home for Christmas, hopeful in a way I hate admitting now. I walked through the front door in uniform, waiting for a reaction. My father handed me a shovel. "Driveway needs clearing." No congratulations, no pride, just expectations. I kept trying anyway. I called on birthdays, sent gifts on anniversaries, wired money when something broke, roof leak, car trouble, unexpected expenses. They never asked where the money came from or what it cost me. They just took it. Still, every year I hoped. Just one holiday where I'd feel wanted, where my place at the table wasn't obligation, but welcome. This year was supposed to be different. I was finally out of service. Discharge papers signed, pension modest but steady. I was tired in a way sleep couldn't fix, but I was ready to come home. Not as a soldier, but as a daughter. And then came the message. That was when I started looking through old emails. Not with any goal in mind, just something to distract me from the quiet. Buried deep in my archived military correspondence was a document I barely remembered signing. 5 years earlier, during a short leave, my father had asked me to co-sign paperwork for the house. A refinance. He said it was temporary, a formality. He said my name wouldn't really matter. I was 25, exhausted, still wearing the uniform when I signed. I opened the document now and read it slowly. Then I read it again. And then a third time. There it was, hidden in plain language I hadn't understood back then. A clause that changed everything. In the event of borrower default or transfer, the co-signer assumes controlling interest in the property. Controlling interest? My hands went cold. I wasn't just connected to the house. I owned most of it. He had needed my credit, needed my signature. And while he had been busy telling me I wasn't welcome, he had forgotten one thing. On paper, I wasn't just his daughter. I was his majority owner. That night, I made a phone call. Not to my family, to a lawyer. I framed it as a hypothetical, calm, detached, the way the military had trained me. What happens, I asked, if someone with controlling interest decides to take over? There was a pause on the line. Then the answer came. They have every right to. I hung up and stared at the ceiling, my heart steady, my mind clear. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for permission. I was done knocking on a door that had never opened. And Christmas was only just beginning. I didn't tell them anything at first. That was the hardest part. Not reacting, not explaining, not demanding answers. For once, I let silence do the work they had relied on for years. While they scrambled behind the scenes, I sat with the truth settling into my bones. I had power. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that storms in with threats. The quiet kind that waits, patient and unshakable. I drafted the letter carefully. No emotion, no accusations, just facts. Effective immediately, I will be exercising my legal rights as co-owner and controlling interest holder of the property located at 12 Windmere Lane. All future communication will be handled through legal counsel. I printed it, signed it, sent it certified mail. Old-fashioned, deliberate. I wanted them to open it together. Then I turned my phone off. For Christmas, I rented a small cabin in the mountains. Snow dusted the trees. A fire crackled in the stone hearth. There were no stockings, no ornaments, no family traditions, just quiet. And for the first time, quiet didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like safety. 5 days later, I turned my phone back on. 10 missed calls. My brother's name appeared first. Rachel, what is going on? Tyler's voice cracked when I finally answered. Dad's losing it. He says you're trying to take the house. I wrapped my hands around a warm mug and stared out the window at the frozen hills. I'm not trying, I said evenly. I already did. You're doing this over a text? He snapped. No, I replied. I'm doing this over a lifetime. He sighed, the familiar sound of someone trying to keep peace by asking the injured person to shrink. You know how he is. Yes, I said. That's exactly why. There was a long silence. Tyler didn't argue after that. He couldn't. He had spent years watching, choosing comfort over fairness. The next call came from a lawyer named Harold Wells. His voice was smooth, practiced, but I could hear the strain beneath it. Miss Monroe, I believe there's been some confusion. Your letter caused a great deal of alarm. There's no confusion, I interrupted. The documents are valid. I've reviewed them with my attorney. Another pause. Well, he said carefully, perhaps we can discuss a buyout, a reassignment of the loan. That's when it clicked. My father hadn't just been cruel. He had been careless. He had defaulted again. I leaned back in my chair. I'm open to discussion, I said, but only if he calls me himself. The line went silent. They didn't want a negotiation. They wanted control back. And control, for once, wasn't theirs. That night, my mother called. Rachel, she whispered, like she was afraid someone might hear. Please, don't do this. Your father is furious. I closed my eyes. Do you remember what he said to me? She didn't answer. He told me not to come home, I continued. Not for Christmas, not at all. I just want us to move past this, she said. I swallowed. Move past what? Being erased? Her breathing grew uneven. He doesn't mean things the way they sound. That's the problem, I said gently. He always means them. You just taught me to ignore it. She cried then quietly, begged me to stop. I didn't. Because what she didn't know was that I had already taken the next step. I hired a property management company, run by a former service member I trusted. Their job wasn't eviction, not yet. It was inspection, documentation, reality. They arrived the following afternoon. The call came while I was watching the fire burn low. Rach, my friend said, we've got issues. How bad? He exhaled. Basement leaks, mold under 2 windows, and there are tenants. My grip tightened. Tenants? 2 rooms rented out, cash arrangements, no paperwork. I felt something settle in my chest. Not anger, but clarity. They hadn't just shut me out. They had used what I legally owned and turned it into profit without telling me. That night, I wrote a second letter. This one wasn't gentle. Effective January 2nd, you are hereby given formal notice of management transition. Unauthorized subleasing is suspended. This property is under investigation for code violations. All further communication must go through legal counsel. I signed it with my full name and my rank. I sent it to their lawyer. Then I texted my brother 3 words. Check your mailbox. The calls came fast after that. Voicemails filled with panic. Even my father left one, angry, demanding, still unable to say my name without entitlement. I didn't listen. Because there's a moment every soldier knows. The moment after survival, when the noise fades and you realize you're still standing. That was where I was now. They had lived in comfort because they believed I would never push back. Because I wanted love more than fairness. They were wrong. For the first time, I wasn't asking to come home. I was deciding who stayed. And January was coming. January arrived without mercy. The air was sharp, the sky heavy with snow, and the driveway at 12 Windmere Lane was crowded with cars I didn't recognize. I stood at the edge of it for a moment, breathing in the cold, steadying myself. I hadn't come alone. Beside me stood the property manager, a locksmith, and a clipboard thick with documentation. I wasn't there to argue. I was there to finish something. My father opened the door before we knocked. His face was flushed, eyes wild with the kind of rage that comes when authority slips through your fingers. "What is this?" he demanded. "Some kind of stunt?" I stepped past him. "My house," I said calmly, "my process." My mother hovered at the base of the stairs, clutching her hands together like she always had. Tyler sat on the couch, staring at the floor. None of them looked like family anymore. They looked like people caught off guard by consequences. "This is illegal," my father snapped. "You can't just take someone's home." I turned to face him. "You defaulted. You signed. You needed my credit. And you told me not to come home." That shut him up. I began reading from the clipboard. "As of today, management and control of this property fall under my authority. You have 30 days to formalize tenancy under my contract or vacate." My mother's voice trembled. "Where are we supposed to go?" I met her eyes. "I don't know, Mom, but it won't be here without accountability." She broke down then, sobbing. Tyler stood like he wanted to say something, an apology maybe, but I raised my hand. "I needed words 10 years ago," I said. "Now I need boundaries." The locksmith changed the entry code as we stepped outside. Snow crunched under my boots. I didn't look back. By the end of the month, the house was empty. No notes, no final arguments, just silence. I returned alone with a new key. The rooms echoed when I walked through them. The living room felt smaller than I remembered. In one bedroom, I found an old duffel tag from a family trip I hadn't been invited to. In the hallway, a deep scratch marred the floor, the place where a table I once bought with deployment money had stood before it was lost. I didn't cry. I opened the back door and let cold air flood in. The house didn't feel like victory. It felt like closure. I sold nothing. I destroyed nothing. I transformed it. The house became transitional housing for women veterans, women who had come home to rejection, silence, or nowhere at all. We named it Monroe House, a place for rest, rebuilding, and dignity. When a local paper ran the story, reporters asked if it was revenge. I smiled and said no. It was reclamation. I don't hear from my family anymore. They don't call, I don't visit, and I'm at peace with that. Every Christmas now, I light a candle on the porch. Not for them, but for the woman I became. The one who stopped knocking. The one who finally came home.